You grab the hose, you pull it over to the garden, and right there in the warm evening light you water your tomatoes. Top to bottom, leaves, stems, fruit, soil, everything gets a good soaking. You step back, feel good about it, and go inside for the night. That right there, that single moment, one most of us have repeated dozens of times without thinking twice, can kill a tomato plant. Not slowly, not gradually. It can trigger a chain reaction that starts overnight and spreads across your entire garden before the week is out. June is the month that separates the gardens that make it to August, looking strong from the ones that start declining right when they should be hitting their peak. And in almost every case, the difference comes down to a small number of habits that feel completely right but are working directly against your plants. I am going to walk you through 5 of the most damaging mistakes you can make with your tomatoes this month. Stay with me because mistake number 3 is the most dangerous one on this list, and most people do not realize they are making it until the damage has already spread, plant to plant across the whole bed. Before we get into it, leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Are you in the South where your June feels like deep summer already? The Midwest? The Mid-Atlantic? New England? What growing zone are you in if you know it? Your climate changes everything about how these mistakes play out, and I want to know what you are working with. Mistake number 1. Watering on a calendar. Instead of reading the soil, picture this. It rained Tuesday night. A real rain, not a sprinkle, a solid hour of it. Thursday rolls around and you water anyway because Thursday is when you always water. That is the mistake. Most of us fall into a schedule because it feels responsible, but your tomato roots do not know what day it is, and overwatering, especially in June when the soil holds heat overnight, is more damaging than most people realize. Here is the biology. Tomato roots need oxygen just as much as they need water. When soil stays waterlogged for more than 24 to 48 hours, the spaces between soil particles fill with water and push out the air. Root cells begin to suffocate. The plant cannot pull up nutrients, even if those nutrients are sitting right there in the soil, because the transport system that moves water and minerals from root to stem depends on root cells that are functioning properly. What you see above ground looks like drought stress, wilting, yellowing, even though the soil is wet. That confusion causes gardeners to water more, which makes everything worse. The fix is simple but requires one new habit. Before you water, push your finger straight down 2 full inches into the soil at the base of the plant. Not 1 inch, 2. If it is still moist at that depth, walk away and check again tomorrow. If it is dry, water slowly and deeply at the base only, long enough to wet the soil down 8 to 10 inches. That depth is where you want the roots to be living. Down where it stays cooler and does not dry out between waterings. On average, established tomato plants in the ground need about 1 to 2 inches of water per week in June depending on your heat and rainfall. In containers, that number climbs fast because containers dry out 2 to 3 times faster than in-ground beds. A container-grown tomato in a hot location may need watering every single day by mid-June in zones 8 and above. If you are in Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, or anywhere else that sees 90-degree days regularly by now, you likely need to water every 2 to 3 days at the base, deeply each time. If you are in Oregon or Vermont, you may need to water far less. The finger test tells you the truth every time. Mistake number 2. Letting the lower plant turn into a jungle. By June, if you are growing any indeterminate variety, which includes most heirlooms, most cherry tomatoes, and popular varieties like Early Girl, Big Boy, and Brandywine, your plant is sending out new growth from every angle. Suckers in every leaf joint, side branches everywhere. And most gardeners leave them all in place because more plant looks like more tomatoes. What is actually happening is an energy competition the fruit cannot win. Tomatoes are what plant scientists call indeterminate for a reason. They will keep growing indefinitely if nothing stops them, and in June, they are putting that growth instinct into overdrive. Every new sucker that is allowed to develop becomes its own branch, then throws out its own suckers, and within a few weeks, you have a plant that is spending the majority of its photosynthetic energy on building new stem and leaf tissue rather than maturing the fruit that is already on the vine. The cooperative extension programs at both North Carolina State and Clemson University have published guidance noting that indeterminate tomatoes benefit significantly from removing suckers below the first flower cluster to redirect energy toward fruit development. Here is how to do it. Look at the crook between the main stem and each branch. If you see a small shoot growing there, that is a sucker. Remove it when it is under 1 inch long by pinching it with your fingers. If it has already grown to 2 or 3 inches, use clean pruning shears and wipe the blades with a diluted bleach solution, 1 part bleach to 9 parts water, between plants to avoid moving any fungal spores from one plant to another. Also remove every leaf that is touching the soil and every leaf on the main stem below 12 inches from the ground. That bare 12-inch zone at the base of the plant is one of the most important disease prevention steps you can take in June, and I will explain exactly why when we get to the next mistake. Mistake number 3. Watering overhead in the evening. This is the one. This is the habit that looks like good gardening and functions like an invitation to disaster. When you water from overhead, whether with a hose, a sprinkler, or a watering wand aimed at the leaves and upper plant, you coat every surface of that tomato in moisture. In the morning, with sun and airflow, that moisture evaporates quickly and the damage is minimal. But when you water in the evening and wet leaves go into a warm, calm night, something very specific happens at the microscopic level. Fungal spores, which are always present in garden soil and air, need only 3 things to germinate and begin infecting plant tissue: moisture, warmth, and time. An evening-watered tomato leaf gives them all 3 simultaneously for 6 to 10 hours straight. The spores land on the wet leaf surface, germinate, and begin penetrating the leaf cuticle overnight while you sleep. By morning, the infection has already started, even if you cannot see it yet. The 2 fungi that devastate June tomato gardens in almost every region of the country are Alternaria solani, which causes early blight, and Septoria lycopersici, which causes Septoria leaf spot. Both begin on the lowest leaves and move upward through the plant as spores spread from splashing water, physical contact between leaves, and wind movement through dense foliage. Once Septoria spreads past the middle of the plant, it is nearly impossible to stop without aggressive intervention. Here is what the spread timeline looks like. Infection starts at the lowest leaves in week 1. By week 2, you see yellowing and brown spots on the lower third of the plant. By week 3, the middle leaves are affected. By week 4, the upper leaves begin to go, and at that point the plant is losing its ability to photosynthesize. Fruit stops sizing, tomatoes crack, color unevenly, and the plant begins shutting down entirely. The fix has 4 parts. First, only water at the base of the plant, at soil level, directed at the roots. Never at the leaves, never overhead. Second, water in the morning, ideally between 6 and 10 a.m., so that any incidental splash on lower leaves dries completely before evening. The USDA and multiple extension programs consistently recommend morning watering as the single most effective cultural practice for reducing fungal disease in tomatoes. Third, maintain that bare 12-inch zone at the base of each plant. Remove all leaves below 12 inches from the soil. This eliminates the primary splash infection pathway, because most fungal spores in garden soil travel through water droplets that hit the soil and bounce back up onto nearby leaf surfaces. No leaves within 12 inches means no target for that splash. Fourth, lay 2 to 3 inches of straw or wood chip mulch around each plant, starting 2 inches away from the main stem and extending outward 12 to 18 inches. That mulch layer physically absorbs the impact of water droplets before they can splash soil up onto the plant. It also keeps soil temperature 6 to 10 degrees cooler than bare ground, which benefits root function during June heat. If you are in a humid region, the Gulf Coast, the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, or the Great Lakes area, and you are already seeing early spots on lower leaves, apply a copper-based fungicide according to label directions every 7 to 10 days going forward. Copper does not cure an existing infection, but it creates a protective barrier on healthy tissue and significantly slows the upward spread. Mistake number 4. Keeping the same fertilizer you used in April. In April and May, your tomatoes needed nitrogen. Nitrogen is the element that pushes stem elongation, leaf expansion, and overall plant structure. It makes sense early in the season when you are trying to grow a strong, well-branched plant. But by June, The biology has changed. The plant has its structure. Now it is flowering, setting fruit, and beginning to develop the tomatoes you are waiting for. And nitrogen, that same element that helped the plant grow in spring, is now actively working against you. When a tomato plant receives excess nitrogen during the fruiting stage, it reads that signal as instruction to keep growing vegetatively. It pushes more leaves, more stems, more suckers. Meanwhile, the flower clusters produce weak, poorly pollinated blossoms that drop without setting fruit. The plant looks magnificent and produces almost nothing. What tomatoes need in June is a fertilizer higher in phosphorus and potassium. Phosphorus, the middle number on any fertilizer bag, is directly involved in flower development, fruit cell formation, and energy transfer within the plant. Potassium, the third number, regulates water movement in and out of plant cells, helps fruit develop its full size and color, and strengthens the plant's resistance to disease and temperature stress. Look for a ratio like the 10th of May 2010 or 83216 for your June feeding. Apply according to package directions, typically every 2 to 3 weeks for granular formulas and every 7 to 14 days for liquid concentrate. Always water the fertilizer in thoroughly, at least 1 inch of water after application, to carry nutrients down to the root zone and prevent root burn. Mistake number 5. Ignoring what extreme June heat does to fruit set. Tomatoes love warmth, but they have limits that most gardeners do not know about until they have already been burned by them. When daytime temperatures push above 92 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, tomato pollen loses its viability. The protein structure of the pollen grain degrades in the heat before it can successfully fertilize the flower. Blossoms open, look perfectly healthy, and drop off without ever setting fruit. At night, when temperatures stay above 72 degrees Fahrenheit, the same problem occurs from the opposite direction. The pollen cannot be released properly from the anther, which is the male part of the flower, because the humidity and temperature combination prevents it from drying out and shedding normally. The result is what gardeners call blossom drop. You watch flower after flower open and fall off, and assume something is wrong with the plant or the soil. In most cases in June, the cause is purely thermal. You cannot control the air temperature, but you can manage what happens at the plant level. Keep 2 to 3 inches of mulch in place at all times to prevent soil temperatures from exceeding 85 degrees, which is the threshold at which root function begins to decline. Drip irrigation or base watering in the early morning keeps the root zone cool through the hottest part of the afternoon. If you have a heat wave forecast, 3 or more consecutive days above 95, consider draping a 30% shade cloth loosely over the plants during the hours of 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It reduces the canopy temperature by 8 to 12 degrees and preserves pollen viability without significantly limiting photosynthesis. Remove it in the morning and evening when temperatures moderate and pollinating insects are active. June is the month that decides what the rest of your tomato season is going to look like. Everything we talked about today comes down to 3 things you can carry with you from here. Pay attention to where and when you put water. Read the soil before you water only at the base, and always water in the morning. That one change alone eliminates a chain of problems that run all the way from root health to fungal disease. Feed and prune for the fruit, not the foliage. Remove what the plant does not need, shift to low nitrogen fertilizer, and let the plant put its energy where it belongs. And protect what is growing. Mulch, that bare 12-inch zone at the base, morning watering, and a watchful eye on the lower leaves are all connected to each other. They work together as a system, not as separate tasks. I want to say something before we close, because I know the kind of person who is watching this video right now. You are someone who goes outside in the morning with a cup of coffee and checks on things before the day starts. You notice when a leaf is off. You remember what you planted last year and what worked and what did not. You have probably shared tomatoes with a neighbor, or set a basket of them on the kitchen counter for your family, or handed them across a fence to someone who did not expect it. That act of growing something, really growing it, from seed or from a tiny transplant all the way to a ripe, heavy tomato you picked yourself, that is not a small thing. It connects you to the season in a way that nothing else quite does. It gives you something to tend, something to watch, something to be proud of. Do not let a handful of June mistakes take that from you this summer. If this helped you, Please subscribe so you do not miss the rest of what we cover this season. Leave a comment and tell me which of these 5 mistakes you recognized from your own garden, because there is nothing wrong with having made them. You did not know. Now you do. And share this video with a friend or a family member who is out there trying to grow their own food this summer. What you share might be exactly what saves their harvest. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.